Good evening. It's Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, and you're the Stanislaus Council of Governments Policy Board meeting. If we could, I don't think there's been a remote request. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and go to roll call.
Member Chiesa,
Here.
Member Graywall, Chair Condit,
Here.
Member Condit,
Present.
Member Withrow,
Here.
Member Lopez,
Here.
Vice Chair Carr,
Here.
Member Swallen, here, Member Escutia Brayton, here, Member Wright,
Present.
Member Graham, Member Gilbert, Alternate Member Roque, Member Hernandez,
Here.
Member Phillips,
Here.
Member Gokin,
Here.
and Caltrans ex officio Gregoria Ponce. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum?
Thank you. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bless you. All right, members of the public may address the committee on any items not on the agenda. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes unless the chair or the committee sets a different time. It'll be 5 minutes. Remember that the policy board cannot make any decisions that on items that are not on the agenda. Does anybody have any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Moving on to the consent calendar. Any members wish to pull any items on consent?
Yes, I'd like to pull item number 6F, please.
6F. Any others? Any members of the public like to make comment on the consent calendar item? And none? We'll go ahead and do a vote. I need a motion and a second for all items other than F, and then we'll discuss F.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, unanimous. So let's go ahead and discuss item F on consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Jean Faletta will provide an update on that item.
Hi, good evening. You will have in your packets the schedules for the item that I'll be discussing today. The item is on your, the schedules are on your left-hand side of your packet. So I do apologize for the tardiness in getting these to you. We actually inadvertently put the wrong schedules in initially. And so we went ahead and corrected that error, and you're looking now at the updated schedules. So I'll go ahead and give the presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions afterwards. So right now I'll be talking to you about the draft FY 2024-2025 Amendment Number 2 Budget and Overall Work Program. And just a little bit of background on what amendments are. Our amendments are used throughout the year to capture increases or new expenses and revenues, or to make necessary adjustments to the budget. Two items of note in this amendment. The revenue side is the Caltrans carryover funding for FY 2022-23 to 2024-25. Caltrans did a forensic dive for all the MPOs and found money that otherwise we could have lost. So this is a great deal. And we got a surplus from there of over 150 or 1.5 million in the revenue count section. Then we also have the Regional Early Action Plan called REAP 2.0. This is a new program. It is actually in this, I'm going to be referring to this a lot, the overall work program. We're going to call this our grant application. I want to tie what I'm talking about to this so that you completely understand how this all works. So REAP 2.0 is something that we had to capture. It is on page, if you want to just have a reference and see how it works a little bit. On page, I should have written it down, but 90 of the booklet if you feel like looking at it. Anyway, this is a 7.1 million dollars that we got awarded for this program. And we're going to use 2.9 million for consulting work. Next slide. Yeah, okay. So some of the adjustments and amendments to the expenditures for Amendment 2. We made some adjustments to comply with federal reporting requirements. We made some adjustments to our auditing. As you might remember, last year we had to raise the price of auditing because we got a new auditor. And this year we also have a federal triennial audit, which is a requirement. The adjustments to the expenditure line are fairly flat, but these are a couple examples of where there was a little bit of a change. One great example that I want to, again, connect you with is the TAM program, Transit Asset Management Program. This is something that came about just really a few weeks ago, and it's an element that we need to include in our overall work program. So, of course, we did, and we're using about $75,000 for consulting services. And again, that is tied in to this, I'm going to call it a grant application because that's really what it's like. And that's on page, excuse me, on page 65. So the overall standing of Amendment 2 is a surplus of 5.6 million. And much of this increase is attributed, of course, to the REAP funds of 7.1 million. Next slide. Okay, and with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I do have questions. I brought this up to our executive director yesterday. If you look at page 37 in your book, all the numbers in there, most of the numbers do not add up. They're completely different than what you're looking at now. And my concern was that unless I wouldn't have brought it up yesterday, this board would probably have approved this report, the amendment to the budget, without even looking at it, which is completely wrong. That's why I have asked several times for our Management and Finance Committee, which we have, to look at our budget, to make sure that, we have another set of eyes, that we're really transparent on what we're doing. And that has gone nowhere. And I'm concerned that, has anybody else in this committee looked at this budget to see whether or not this is correct? Was I the only one that caught it? There's all these numbers on page 37. Most of them are wrong.
So again, my apologies on that. I'll take that one. That's why we corrected, and we appreciate your comments the other day. We had some comments from other members as well, and we put those in here too. So it's important, I think, to understand the relationship of this document with the board. This document is again, it's like a grant application that we're regulated to do by Caltrans, FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, and FTA, Federal Transit Administration. And so the relationship here is really with the Caltrans and that group to get this. It's their budget. It's them telling us what we have to do. And that comes out of this work plan. These are all the things we're mandated to do. We're mandated to do it by these funding partners. So go ahead.
Jean, if I may, Mr. Chair. And I do see the concern of our member
Mhm.
because those were very egregious errors on the
Yes.
ones that are in the packet. When Member Wright did come and meet with me yesterday, I had the right copy
Mhm.
because I had a printed copy of the right schedule. when staff was rushing and I was meeting with some of the members on Monday morning, they were rushing to get this packet in order so we could send it out to all of you so you could have at least time. And I think, unfortunately, we made a mistake.
Yes.
However, before this document goes to our federal funding partners, we take another relook to ensure that our schedules are correct because, again, the final blessing comes from our federal partners. And we want to make sure that when we're submitting this document, it is accurate.
Yeah, and they won't
Because
accept
They
it.
will not accept it. They will reject it or they will comment on it. And it's due to them.
May 10th.
Well, this is an amendment. This is due to them by May 1st.
Mhm.
Well, I do think policy member Wright has a point that had we not had oversight here, we might have approved some numbers that might have been a little bit off. And what is the policy as far as turning these financials or financial documents in general over to the finance committee? Do we currently have one, or how often do we interface with them?
So when we're saying the finance committee, you're talking about the management and finance?
Yes.
So we don't bring that item to them, but we
Items
use
in
our
general.
executive, pardon?
Items in general. I know that there's been past requests on turning over some of our finances to that management committee. How often does that take place?
Well, it depends on what financials they're asking. So an example, the Measure L financials, that's something that all the cities and the county, receive funding from this agency. Those reports are given to them on a monthly basis.
Monthly basis. So they were given to them last month.
They were, yes, the packet, it was in their packet. And
Mhm.
even if a meeting gets canceled where we're not meeting with them, that information it's accessible on our website. It's accessible on the board because it comes to the board at every month as well.
And I guess what would be the explanation other than just things were done hastily with these numbers possibly being wrong? And how can we have security in knowing that numbers in the past that we have approved haven't been wrong and numbers in the futures won't be wrong?
Great question, because again, this document has to go to our federal partners and they review it. And if it's wrong, they're not going to approve it and they're not going to approve our budget by July 1st. So we would hear from them and we are trying to avoid embarrassment. So yes, we want to make sure. That's why we do a relook even again and again. But this document has been, and I was talking to the chair earlier, it's been a challenge this one time because we've had a lot of changes and new additions, new work elements. A lot of things were added
Mhm.
in a very short window. And so normally it doesn't operate that way. We have a little more time. As an example, the executive committee, I love bringing this item to them because it gives us an opportunity to go and explain the budget and the changes to the 5 members that sit on exec. But we weren't even ready.
Yeah,
These
the
weren't-
timing of what we got, the feedback we got from Caltrans
Right. It
wouldn't have allowed us to take it to those committees anyway,
This
because
is
they
the-
gave us comments and we needed to incorporate them.
And an embarrassment is a good point because remember, we're all voting on this. This isn't just an embarrassment on the organization, it would be an embarrassment on us individually. So obviously we need to have good oversight, and I do thank Councilman Wright for having an eagle eye on this and spotting out those numbers so that we could get them corrected.
Go ahead, Charlie.
So, I mean, I understand that management and finance doesn't have the authority to change this or approve it. But next year, I'd like to see this go through them before we get it because they are some of the most experienced people in, budgeting, finance, things like that. And a lot of times they bring things up to us that they see and help us out. I mean, they work for us, we're elected, we hire them, and we hire them partly to be our eyes and ears when we can't be there. So I understand why it didn't go to them this year, but next year I'd like to see that happen before it comes to us.
Any other comments?
Can we make a motion on that? So
You
it's
got
on
another
record?
comment?
I appreciate the conversation, but something is gnawing at the back of my mind with the fact that this staff, shorthanded as it is under extreme pressure
and in trying to satisfy multiple agencies. What we're looking at here is required for us to get any money. We've got to do this by law. But the staff is putting in multiple hours and giving up holidays and weekends trying to satisfy another legal requirement, which is the grand jury investigation, which we all know about. So I have to be a little understanding, and if they make a mistake, yeah, they bring it to us. We understand that. But going forward, if we don't have, or if the staff doesn't have the distraction of multiple agencies investigating this organization and us, then things should run a lot smoother. So
Which nobody knows of that. We don't speak of that.
well, it's been brought up in open meeting. So, no, well, I'm sorry. Then I spoke out of turn, but I just think that a lot of distraction, and I'll leave it at that.
And that's why when I made my comments, I said, I understand this year is not being done that way because I was aware of what you alluded to that we're not supposed to talk about. However, this isn't the first time, and I've had many instances of this, things have come to us that I would have preferred the Management and Finance Committee to look at. This isn't the first instance of that. If it was, it'd be a one-off, but it's not. I'd like to see this go through them next year.
Yeah, I think Mr. Gokin's point is that we would like to avoid that in the future as any sort of things we're not supposed to be speaking of.
I apologize.
So it sounds like both things are true. Thank you for all the work you've done. And yeah, if possible, I know you'll bring it to some free reviews beforehand.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the policy board. Still needs a motion to pass.
So move to approve.
I have a first.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Hi. Could I, one comment, and this is just incidental.
Go ahead,
but
Mayor.
if documents could be dated, it would be really helpful, so we know the original and then the second one. I just write old and new, or number one, number two, number three, whatever. It's really helpful if they have a date on them, and then we have a point of reference. Thank you.
But what we're still on this, Monica, do we need some motion to take this through the Management Finance Committee, or the direction or request we provided sufficient, or what do we need to do to ensure that happens?
So we've heard the direction, so staff will take that. Also, we will be updating the joint powers agreement and more clearly identifying the roles and responsibilities of each of the committees within the organization, which will include the Management and Finance Committee. So you will have an opportunity to guide us along that process as well.
Thank you.
Okay, before we finish that, I didn't get to ask if there were any against. Any against? Okay, so it's unanimous. All right, moving on, discussion items. 7A, motion to approve the 2025 federal legislative platform.
Mr. Chair, we have Jen Covino to give us our presentation on this matter.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to provide a quick federal update and an overview of our recommendations for your consideration for the 2025 federal legislative platform. Of course, we have provided a draft federal legislative platform for your review and consideration that, like most other years, it contains a traditional review of your most important capital infrastructure projects that will have federal funding requests at the table for the administration or lawmakers' consideration this year. But notably, I did want to call your attention to the fact that back here in Washington, D.C., we have some other important discussions happening on Capitol Hill right now that are pertaining to what you may have heard of as the budget reconciliation process that will likely involve tax reform. as well as the upcoming surface transportation reauthorization process, which will establish the successor to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That is the formal title of what many folks know as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law of 2021, which is set to expire at the end of federal fiscal year 2026. And with us quickly approaching the start of federal fiscal year 2026 here on October 1st, committees on Capitol Hill who have jurisdiction and oversight of federal transportation policy, programs, and regulations are already beginning their efforts anew in terms of what that successor legislation will look like. So I will quickly walk you through the platform that's in front of you and just give you some context and considerations for your awareness. In terms of regional projects, as of now, we have 3 priority infrastructure projects that have been or will be submitted by either StanCog itself or its member agencies to either the U.S. Department of Transportation, other federal agencies, or potentially to lawmakers themselves for consideration of federal funding, either through grant programs, other financial assistance, or earmarks, which is a process that was recently reinstated a few years ago here in Washington, D.C. So the first project that's on the agenda is Stanislaus Council of Governments State Route 132, Dakota Avenue to Gates Road project. And you'll notice throughout this draft agenda, we've tried to keep our descriptions of each of the projects fairly general so that if either the COG or its member agencies decide to submit another grant request or an earmark request over the weeks ahead, that we're speaking very generally so that if we're speaking to a Senate office who has an earmark request from us, that is slightly different from, let's say, a grant proposal and the level of funding we've asked for on that grant proposal. We want to keep it intentionally vague so that we can utilize this agenda and promulgate your materials with any federal officials who may be reviewing a pending federal funding request. So that's why I just wanted to note the intentional decision to not specify some funding levels throughout this, because again, we might have some slight variations when we're talking about a grant versus an earmark request for the same exact project. So again, we're starting with State Route 132, Dakota Avenue to Gates Road. StanCog has recently submitted a series of earmark requests to both senators and will be submitting to Congressman Gray. Last year, former Congressman John Duarte had carried this request as an earmark, but unfortunately, with this most recent budget cycle, unfortunately, congressional leaders were unable to come to a resolution on a full year budget that reconciles the House and Senate versions of 12 different spending bills. And because of that, unfortunately, all earmark requests were excluded from the most recent continuing resolution that passed, funding the government through the end of federal fiscal year 2025. So in light of that, Congressman Gray is affording project sponsors from last year the opportunity to resubmit those proposals for consideration, and StanCog will be doing so. Moving on quickly to the next project, Stanislaus County and its project partners are still focused on the North County Corridor project. And so, you know, this is one of those projects that has good appeal to some of the priorities of the Trump-Vance administration in terms of relieving congestion, improving regional connectivity, accommodating growth, and supporting efficient movement of goods and people. And so we'll be carrying that this time, and also leaving open the possibility of any forthcoming federal grant requests in support of that project. And finally, City of Modesto and Stanislaus County's Department of Public Works, along with Caltrans, also have the 7th Street Replacement Bridge Project. And so that is something we have also covered here in terms of the replacement of the existing 7th Street Bridge project, along with you know, your holistic approach to what that transportation facility will look like moving forward. I will just caution one item. The Trump-Vance administration, through recent executive orders, and Secretary Sean Duffy, who oversees the Department of Transportation, he recently issued a memorandum seeking compliance with the president's executive orders. And because of that, it looks as though the federal funding that has previously been there for bicycle facilities, that's unlikely to remain. So I would just urge Modesto to be considerate of some of those changes back here at the federal level. Quickly shifting gears, and all I will say is, so those are the projects we currently have. If others have regional priority projects to share for the policy board's consideration, we're still happy to accommodate any other requests that would be forthcoming. Please let us know if we've missed anything here. Shifting gears again, as I said, to policy principles. Right now, Congress is in the midst of the budget reconciliation process. They are on a recess this week, but right before the House left, it passed the Senate approved version of the budget reconciliation framework that basically unlocks the process. It is not the legislation itself, but over the weeks ahead, both the House and the Senate are going to be hard at work with committees of jurisdiction who have been tasked with instructions to go either increase or decrease the federal deficit over the next 10 years, taking steps to draft legislation that will accomplish the fiscal goals prescribed by that framework. Well, why is that important to Stanislaus Council of Governments or its member agencies? Well, obviously, President Trump would like to see permanent extension of the tax cuts that were provided by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. That's going to cost about $4.5 trillion to maintain the current baseline policy. And so right now there's an assessment going on, particularly in the House of Representatives, as to where they can both identify revenue raisers as well as spending cuts that are prescribed by the framework that's been adopted. And so when it comes to infrastructure funding, one of our top concerns right now is maintaining the tax exempt status of municipal bonds, as well as the preferential status of private activity bonds and Build America bonds. As you know, these financing tools are critically important for not only the MPO, but all of its member agencies to support infrastructure financing and development over the next 10 years. And so this is something that, whereas tax reform is really the most urgent discussion of the moment back here in Washington, D.C., we are recommending that StanCog carries, a call or an urging to lawmakers to maintain that tax exempt status of municipal bonds. Just to share for your awareness, the Government Finance Officers Association estimates that over the next 10 years, about $1.1 trillion of infrastructure will need to be financed at the state and local level of government. Without the tax exempt status of municipal bonds, that cost will escalate to $1.9 trillion, ultimately costing state and local governments another $820 billion. GFOA estimates that if you do the cost savings by taking away that tax exemption, you're only saving $250 billion on the muni bonds front, and then $114 billion on private activity bonds and other Build America bonds. So, they're costing taxpayers $820 billion at the state and local level over the next 10 years, while saving only $364 billion at the federal level. So it's an important discussion to have right now, and just wanted to put that out there for your awareness. One other policy statement that could be helpful, particularly to those of you in California who are trying to maintain your revenues. Lawmakers back here, per President Trump's recommendation during his campaign, are looking at increasing the cap of the state and local tax deduction to help ensure public support for revenues that are generated by local measures. So that's just something to flag for your awareness. President Trump and a number of Republican congressional leaders would like to see that cap increased. It's currently at $10,000 for joint households. They'd like to see that increase somewhere in a range of $20,000 to $50,000. And given the pressures you all feel there in California, that is something that could be advantageous for you all as you go to renew your measures on the horizon. And finally, shifting gears, toward that surface transportation reauthorization I mentioned. Of course, the bipartisan infrastructure law is set to expire at the end of the coming federal fiscal year. I think a lot of folks had a lot to like about the bipartisan infrastructure law, and yet we also certainly have our complaints about it as well. And so from the COGS perspective, I think planning dollars are something that are considered to be a great enabler in terms of staffing capacity to meet the various federal requirements associated with grant programs. Additionally, many local governments, as well as metropolitan planning organizations, are looking for lawmakers to maintain the fiscal year 26 funding levels of the bipartisan infrastructure law as an appropriate baseline for continued transportation funding moving forward, but to also ensure that states are sub-allocating awards down to the local level so that the state of California is not wasting, 10 to 15% of every federal dollar per program on administration when that could be going down to the local level in supporting construction or other costs associated with your projects. And finally, we think that the Trump-Vance administration very strongly believes in pursuing streamlining of environmental reviews and project permitting. And so that is a policy area that's ripe for discussion right now. And so we've included it on the agenda for your consideration. Just flagging potential dates for a potential trip to Washington, D.C., if that is of interest to the policy board, based on congressional calendars. We're looking at the weeks of May 19th, which we understand now there is a potential conflict with the North County Corridor groundbreaking event happening back there. So we understand if you're inclined to scratch that off your list. The week of June 2nd is another opportunity where we'll have both the House and the Senate here in Washington, D.C. Our team may be competing soon enough with a Conference of Mayors event that may be occurring this week, but it would just be helpful to see what you all have in mind. Of course, our team is happy to split up in making the rounds on Capitol Hill. And then finally, the week of June 23rd is sort of the final opportunity on the horizon ahead of the 4th of July holiday. One thing I would note, we have been engaging with the Trump-Vance administration at all levels, including the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, over to IGA crews at various federal agencies. Not sure if you are aware, but the Senate has been, keeping a historic pace in confirming President Trump's appointees to the cabinet and sub-cabinet level officials. Unfortunately, given recent developments and sort of the geopolitics of the moment, I will say the Senate has tended to focus on advancing positions that are associated, let's say, with global trade, with public safety, with immigration enforcement. Unfortunately, within the domestic policy sphere, over at DOT following recent aviation incidents, including the crash we had here in Washington, D.C., the Federal Aviation Administration is actually taking a lot of the bandwidth in terms of DOT appointments, and rightfully so. We want to ensure that the flying public is safe. But unfortunately, as of today, we have not yet had a confirmation for the Administrator of Federal Transit Administration, as well as the Federal Railroad Administration, David Fink, who will obviously play a critical role in navigating next steps with the California High-Speed Rail project and the ongoing review of that federal funding that's been made to the state of California. And so with that being said, I just want to offer, every 4 years we go through a transition here, and no matter how fast it seems to go, oftentimes, I like to caution to folks that we offer no guarantees that the right folks are going to be in the right positions by the time you get here. And so with that being said, I just want to be honest in my assessment that I think the later folks are coming to Washington, D.C. this year, the better the odds are that we'll have these modal administrators hopefully confirmed by the Senate by then. And once those confirmations happen, they will be going through sort of the deputy assistant secretary levels of each of the multimodal agencies at the Department of Transportation and filling out some of the really key program level positions where we want to be talking to certain staff about projects, sort of in the weeds while you're here. One other thing for your consideration is obviously the president, is relentless in terms of the issuance of executive orders. We had more than 100 come out in the first few months of the administration. And if you can imagine, each of the federal agencies are needing to be responsive about how they are going to incorporate the White House recommendations and report back to the White House about how they are interpreting the executive orders and moving forward. For the Department of Transportation, there's actually a very important project by project review that's ongoing, assessing if and how previous grant agreements are in compliance with President Trump's executive orders. Because of that, DOT is still assessing which programs will remain available throughout the year ahead. And within each of those programs, which types of activities will or will not be funded over the next 4 years. And so again, we want to maintain some level of patience, particularly since the Trump administration inherited more than 3,200 projects that had been awarded during the Biden years, but it had not yet had an executed grant agreement. Secretary Duffy reported to Capitol Hill that traditionally they might have 90 to 100 projects to get through. They've got 3,200 projects on the backlog right now that they're trying to get through. And so with that being said, again, I would just caution that coming a little bit later into the spring or summer also affords our agency level partners the opportunity to come to a resolution about how they are moving forward with implementation of the president's executive orders and a good understanding of which federal funding opportunities are going to remain available to you all over the weeks and months ahead. So with that, I want to thank you so much for your patience with me tonight. I'm sorry that this was a little bit long-winded, but there's a lot going on back here. And my colleagues and I are certainly looking forward to hopefully welcoming the Policy Council back to DC over the weeks or months ahead. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or recommendations you have regarding the platform. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions for Jen from the Policy Board? Seeing none here. Thank you so much for all that great information. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Go ahead, Charlie.
I have a comment. I don't have a question. Personally, I'm against raising the state and local tax deduction SALT. I know it benefits all of us and everything, but I don't really think that the non-high tax states should be in the business of subsidizing the high tax states. And so I cannot support that part of the platform because I don't think it's right. I mean, so basically if you pay more taxes in California, now you pay less federal. So you're paying less towards defense and the other things that all the other states have to pay. And I know it'll benefit me, but I'm still against it.
Any other comment? All right. We need a motion for the approval of the 2025 legislative platform.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Oh,
Yeah, jumped over that.
Guys, approval of this document, does it identify a date that it's going to be selected?
We do need to do that. I think.
Okay. Can I so,
Do it separate. Okay, yeah. Let's go ahead and approve the platform and then we'll have discussion about what day we're going to go. So I heard a first
A second.
and you got it. Did you get the first? Okay, we got the second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? One opposed. Two opposed. Mr. Wright and Charlie Gokin. All right, let's have discussion about when it would be a good time to go back to DC.
sorry.
Say that again.
Have a discussion about when it would be a good time to go back to DC. We have 3 dates to choose from.
Can I ask Jennifer a question?
Sure.
Hi, Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You had indicated that from your standpoint, that the later the better, given that they would be more staffed up and up to speed on the funding sources. What would be the latest date? You said summer, spring, summer, or did you say summer, fall? I mean,
Yeah, so we had offered sort of 3 sets of dates,
Right.
the end of May, heading
May,
into
June,
June. Just one thing I will say, hotels are competitive back here, and so we want to ensure that for anything we plan that, we have enough time for logistics and all of that. That being said, I would also offer that based on the timelines of some of the reviews for the requests that are included in this, earmarks, for an example, we should actually have a resolution on that over the immediate weeks ahead. I'm advocating on your behalf back here in Washington, D.C. in real time and all that. So that being said, the agencies right now are pretty far behind in terms of issuing solicitations for grant programs, again, because they need to do this review for compliance with the executive orders. So that being said, most grant awards need to be announced by September 30th, meaning that we enter into late August, the beginning of September, with agencies going through the final evaluations and reviews of pending grant proposals. And so for that reason, I would say, that we're flexible and happy to accommodate you all anytime. I would just say for fiscal year 25 federal funding requests, you're going to want to get here before mid-September at the very latest. But, it also depends. You want to try to be some of the first in meeting with folks with the chance that, we might not quite have the right people in the mix. Or alternatively, do you all prefer the security of a September trip? I defer to you all. I know there may be a variety of opinions in response to that. I've had some clients come to, we represent solely local governments back here. We've had mayors come to town, and unfortunately, the only people in some of the agencies are fairly low level IGA contacts who are coming over from the campaign. They're not necessarily the deputy assistant secretary with the subject matter expertise. So I don't want to, it's one of those times that I would just say I would appreciate everyone's understanding in that if you all come sooner rather than later, there is that chance again that we don't have the modal administrators confirmed by the Senate, and then they don't have sort of their right-hand people who are going to be by their side for the next few years, if that makes sense. So just
Sounds like, I'm sorry to interrupt. It sounds like the executive committee might have a little bit of time to have a conversation about a time that really suits the executive committee. And it perhaps doesn't need to be identified today or agreed upon today. And then maybe certain dates can be identified and run by Jennifer and see if that works. I don't know. Is it critical that a date be identified today?
from our perspective, we don't need to know, and
Yeah.
we'll welcome whenever you come to a resolution and be happy to accommodate your best availability whenever that time comes.
We can definitely have a discussion at the executive board level and take a look at those times or dates and make a decision from there. I think we still have time. Rosa, do you have anything you'd like?
No, I just think that I did ask Jen to look at when the House and the Senate, and these were the dates that she proposed for this year, for June 23rd. So if we're talking further than this, and we're looking at, Jen, I would need to know, again, what would be available in August, right?
Well, one thing I would note, they are gone the entire month of August, so there would be additional dates in July. There's probably 2 or 3 weeks that they're available in July. Of course, they take the week of the 4th of July off. But then we would, if we get into August, then we've got to jump forward to September. So we can provide some other dates later in June into July, and then some in September. One thing I would offer as just caution on the budget reconciliation and tax reform discussion, that is something that they are hoping to resolve ahead of the August recess. So, to any extent that you all are really feeling passionate about municipal bonds, that's a conversation to have sooner rather than later. But I will say, I know that most of you are also members of different organizations like the National Association of Counties, U.S. Conference of Mayors. All of the intergovernmental groups that are nonpartisan are weighing in on municipal bonds. It's not just you that will be part of that chorus. So I also wouldn't necessarily predicate your dates on that issue, if that makes sense.
I'm fine with tabling the issue and have discussion at the next executive, then bringing it back to the policy board. That's fine. Thank you, Jen.
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
On item 6F, did we approve the amended proposal, or did we just approve the Finance Committee looking at the next year proposal?
Thank you, Member Wright. The motion was to approve the resolution approving the overall work program amendment number 2. And regarding the Management and Finance Committee, we received the direction from the board. In addition, the Joint Powers Agreement will be updated, clarifying roles of committees.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and we'll table that discussion about the trip to DC, and then, and we'll move on to the next.
Thank you, Jen. We will
Thank you,
keep
Jen.
following up with you.
Thank you all for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
All right, 7B, motion to accept the resolution 24-33 fiscal year 2025-26 draft budget overall work program OWP. Jean Valletta, you're back up.
Thank you, thank you. So you just heard me talk about the OWP Amendment 2 process. And now I will be presenting on the current budget FY 25-26. Before I start into the meat of it, I just want to do a little background. So each year, StanCog is required to prepare this budget and overall work program, referred to as the OWP. Now, this budget differs from what you might be accustomed to, like a city or county budget, because StanCog is a grant-funded agency under the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and Caltrans. So the budget and overall work program is required to be submitted and approved each year by StanCog funding partners, and it identifies funding sources and staff resources necessary to complete federal and state mandated transportation. So in essence, this document that we're talking about is just like a grant, a big grant application. Next slide, please. So now we'll go over a little bit of the annual process. So the annual process is a prescribed process by regulation. So we met in January with our funding partners to discuss the work requirements of the upcoming fiscal year and preparation of the OWP. The draft OWP for FY 25-26 was submitted February 28th for review by our funding partners. And based on this meeting and what we heard, we prepared this draft. We made adjustments into the OWP that you have in front of you. The grant application has a due date of May 10th in order to receive funding at the start of the fiscal year, July 1. Next slide. So revenues. Revenues are relatively flat. One of the things I should say is we used Amendment 2 to build upon for this budget. And I didn't say that the new schedules are on the right-hand side of your folder, the adjusted ones. There weren't many changes in the revenues from the Amendment 2 to 25-26. We did get an additional 500,000 in CMAQ, and the LTF planning dollars were down about $227,000 from the previous year. Next slide. The expenditure side of the house. We added $72,000 to our IT services, and this was based mostly on we procured audio visual support. We had to increase the RTP support by 152,000. We're right in the middle of that, and it's a big project, so that's not a surprise. And then adjustments to operating expenditures were done as needed. So due to the fact that the revenues and expenditures did not change much, we have a surplus, overall surplus of 50,000 for the year. Next slide. I would be happy to take any questions.
I do have questions. I noticed that the schedule that the new schedules come out.
Recognize, David. Go ahead. You're recognized. Go ahead.
I noticed that there's a new schedule compared to what was in our manual.
Correct, yes.
I do have a couple questions on it. So I noticed that on the Measure L public outreach. Last year, we budgeted $619,000.
Mhm.
This year, we're budgeting $619,000.
Yes.
And I look over to the project expenditures, public outreach, education, 245,000 was budgeted last year.
Mhm.
But for paying out, and also we're budgeting another 245,000.
That is correct. That is, the 245 is for the budget for the Convey Inc. that we contracted with for the public outreach and education campaign.
Okay, so my question would be, since we budgeted 619,000 last year, and we haven't spent that,
Mhm.
we're carrying over the 245
Mhm.
proposal for this coming year,
Mhm.
and we're budgeting another 619,000
Mhm.
for public outreach. Shouldn't there be an offset of some money coming back because we did not use the 619,000?
So that isn't an address.
Standard, Terry, you're a CPA. Is that a standard? When you don't use the money one year, do you carry it back into the following year?
So we do carry it back, or it reverts back to the fund, whatever the
Yeah.
fund balance is, yeah. It's not
So my,
carried over, reverted back.
so my question is, why are we setting the money aside but not using it? Instead of having come back into the fund, we're putting more money aside.
So that was addressed in an update to our master funding agreement, that the 1% for the Measure All Education campaign would come over to Stancock. I think, Monica, did you have a comment on that?
Go ahead.
Okay. So thank you, Member Wright. So I believe it was last year or the year before, we brought two items to the board where we amended our Measure L policies and procedures. It was both for the local projects and for the regional projects, and the board authorized the additional 1%. You know, we have the 1% for administration, and then the board authorized the 1% for this public outreach campaign. And that was done with the anticipation that we would have an opportunity to get this outreach program off the ground. And so that's still in its very infant stages, and we were going to reevaluate the scope once it got an opportunity to get going and then bring it back to the board. So the 1% has been being pulled consistent with the previous board authorization.
So basically, down the road sometime, we're going to look at where our expenses are. If there's any leftover, we're going to bring it back into the general fund.
I don't know about bringing the monies back into the general fund, but we are going to look at and evaluate the public awareness campaign to make sure that we are really taking advantage of the tools that are available to us and making the public more aware of all of the good things that Measure L is doing in the county.
My recollection when we approved this last year is that if we did not use 119,000 last year, that whatever was left over would be carried over to this year, along with whatever the difference would be to make it up to 619. That was my recollection when we voted on this last year.
We'd be happy to go back and look at the minutes and the recording from that particular meeting so that we can report back to you on what the action was.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm a little confused here. So my understanding that the left column is 24, 25, the middle column is 25, 26, and then the right column is just an increase of year over year. Doesn't say whether we spend it or not anywhere. So where's this spending coming from? I don't see that anywhere on here.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Member Gokin. On a monthly report that you receive in your packet, and it's actually in this packet, you'll see what the Measure L funding is, and you'll note that it's 350 or something. I mean, I can look it up right now. But it'll show you, we started collecting from the member agencies that the Measure L so it's not 619, but we still have this consultant on board, and Ms. Streeter's correct. We are planning to finish this year out with this consultant and see where we are and bring it back to you. So you could see if it's working or not. I mean, this is kind of like a pilot program.
Mhm.
None of us know, but we're not expending additional money. It's there.
Yeah, and that, all that money sits there. So just to be clear, none of, we're not billing time to that. None of the staff is billing time to that. It's all sitting there for, essentially for consultants to do the work for us.
Didn't this idea of the 1% being used to showcase Measure L, that came from our Citizen Advisory Committee, right? The
Yes.
Measure L Citizen
Mhm.
Advisory Committee,
Yeah.
because they were upset because there wasn't enough publicity going on about the projects that were happening because of Measure L within our communities. right?
Yes, that is correct.
And didn't that also, and we can talk about it because that's already closed, come from a prior grand jury recommendation, which is why we did it, correct?
Correct.
Because that's reported and published, which is
That's
why
correct
we
too.
went that route.
That's right.
I have
Go
a
ahead, Mayor.
question. So for travel conferences and seminars, it says $350,000. Is there, maybe it's clear somewhere, how much we spent last year on travel
So,
conferences and seminars?
so far, currently, I think it's under 300,000.
It is, yes.
Right? I think I talked to Jen
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
It's a little bit
Mhm.
under 300,000.
For this current year?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is it, maybe it would help with a lot of the confusion is if we would actually have a column. Is it somewhere else? Maybe it's here that would show, we've got what's showing here is what was the budget was for 24 and 25, right? If we actually had an actual column, what actually was spent, where is that at? Is that,
Well, we don't have it because our amendment 2 is still our current budget, so we wouldn't have the true up until August or September.
and
So we
then,
actually have the actuals, but I guess we can do that and bring it back to you during that period.
I'm just thinking, we seem like we have a lot of questions here.
Mhm.
And if we actually had the actual numbers, year-to-date actuals, even if they were year-to-date, I know we still got
Oh, okay, we could.
Yeah.
do that.
months to go, it might help with a lot of everybody's concerns
That's a good
to
point.
see,
Yeah.
here's what was proposed budget, here's where we are year-to-date on the actual spending, and then here's what we're proposing for next year. I think that would be, it would
Yeah.
answer a lot of questions for everybody here.
Yeah, we can do that, and we are planning to do another amendment as quickly as we can, probably sometime by September, after we've gotten any more information, so we can get all the reconciliations in as needed.
I might add, I think it'd be good for our Management and Finance Committee to look at this budget also. And full disclosure, so that make sure that, everything is up above board, that there's no questions from any of us here on this committee. But I think it'd be good to have another set of eyes look at it.
That's the motion. I'll second it.
Is that the motion?
Motion.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
So we hear you very loud and clear that you would like to see this document come to your management and finance, who are your city managers. As we have discussed, this document is really predicated and followed by our funding partners, who are our federal and state partners. This we could bring to your finance and management, but I would also like, and I'm asking this board to, I know you're all very busy and it's really hard to get your schedules, but this document, I would like each of you to kind of understand. I know some of you do know this program, this work, overall work program, but it is really essential for you as board members. As Member Condit stated, wants to make sure that when he's approving something, he feels comfortable. I want to make sure that all of you meet with us so we can sit down and really go over and dive into this document, because it is a lot and it is different. So if I may ask down the future, and it doesn't have to, we don't have to wait until the budget is coming. We could do it mid-year so you can know. And to Member Withrow's point, we could also show you where we are with some of these costs and expenditures that we're dealing with. So I think it would be really helpful. And in the past, we've tried to do workshops, but workshops are very hard to get all 16 of you at the same time. So I will try to work with you and try to see what works for some of you, but I feel that we do need to have that, whether it's workshops, something divided into 2 different workshops and offer up. But I think the board members, because our federal funding partners will certify us, and they will not interview your city manager, they'll interview you. And so I think for having that understanding will be important for the board members to know.
The motion on the table, I would like to call for a roll call vote, please.
We need to go to the public first, David. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for it.
The motion on the floor is the motion by member Wright, seconded by member Chance Condit, to have the management and finance look at the current OWP budget and each year thereafter.
Is the motion to accept or to vote on the resolution, to pass the resolution?
So if we can't adopt it until they've looked at it, is that what the motion,
I'm sorry, say again.
we can't vote on it, we can't adopt it until the management and finance has looked at it? Or do we just show it to them? Because the timeline in which we're looking at right now, this has to be adopted. Again, I just want to make sure we can get it done. I don't want to run up
It's
against.
due to the feds on May 9th,
10th.
all eight, no, May 9th, right, Gregoria? All the 9th.
Oh,
It's before our next meeting. Just got this, so we could, well, I guess we could have a special meeting if we had to. Or it would be easier for the city manager to have a special meeting than this board, right? Management and finance, if they wanted to look at it. I'm just trying to figure this out.
We could call a special meeting. Also, I believe, Jean, management and finance is meeting the first week of May,
May 8th.
May 8th. So we would have an opportunity to present it to them, but the board would still have the opportunity to approve it this evening.
And I would just like to say that May 8th is running really, really tight on if there's any changes that need to be made.
At that point, there would be no chance to make changes.
Exactly.
But that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry for interrupting. It's May 7th, Mrs. Streeter.
Thank you.
On a normal year, give me the time frame. This is an abnormal year, or at least it appears to be an abnormal year. If it was a normal year, does it have a chance to go to the management and finance before our COG meeting? Traditional, okay.
And I'll amend my motion in that I'm okay to approve the current budget right now, but going forward, any other future budgets run through our management and finance committee.
You have the amendment.
I'll second it.
Have the second. I'm going to go back out to the public one more time since we had that discussion. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back and we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Member Chiesa,
Aye.
Chair Condit,
Aye.
Member Condit,
Aye.
Member Withrow,
Aye.
Member Lopez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Carr,
Aye.
Member Swallen,
Aye.
Member Escutia Brayton,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Member Hernandez,
yes.
Member Phillips,
Aye.
Member Gokin.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, you have passes?
Unanimous. Thank you.
Can I, Buck, just one quick thing?
Go ahead, Terry.
Just if we could, we talked about those actual numbers, Gene. Maybe, again, I'm just trying to help alleviate a lot of concerns here. Maybe if we could get, just like a business, right? You look at your monthly financial statements, you see where you are, budget versus actual. And I don't know that we need it monthly, but maybe, and because I know you guys got plenty, just a quarterly in our packet.
Yeah.
Here's here's the overall work program budget, and here's the actuals year to date where we are and where our, differences are, higher, lows, whatever. Just quarterly, if we had that going, that would
Yeah.
probably help a lot.
I appreciate that comment and we'll do our best to get that done. Yeah. Mhm.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. All right, moving on. Motion to approve by resolution 24-34, the federal fiscal year 2027 to 2030. Funding round congestion. Did I say that?
So far, so
Funding
good.
round congestion mitigation and air quality, CMAQ, and surface transportation block grant, STBG guidelines. Jose Luis, there you are.
We could have made the title longer, but ran out of paper. Good evening, I'm Jose Luis Cáceres. I'm your Director of Programming and Program Delivery. This is a pretty momentous item, at least for me, and I hope also for this board. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. a little bit of background. This is a funny.
Jose, Luis,
yes.
sorry, before you start, is that your son sitting right there? Can you please introduce him to everybody?
Yeah.
Yes. If you would please stand up. In fact, come on over here. This is my son. His name is Zé. It's a Portuguese nickname for Jose. He's 14?
Yes.
He's like this close to 15. He's an 8th grader in Sacramento. He's going to be a freshman next year. Would you like to say hello to everybody?
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you.
Looking sharp, dude.
Zé's been shadowing me today. I wanted to give him a chance to see what his pops does, and he's helped me prepare for this presentation. So he should be able to tell you exactly what the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Improvement Program is.
You want to have him do the report?
And the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. So yeah, these two programs, they should be familiar to this policy board. They're our biggest funding programs outside of Measure L. But since we do have some newer board members, I want to just give a little bit of detail. So the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Improvement Program, we call it CMAQ. It's one of many acronyms in the programming business. It's basically for projects that help clean up the air. In other words, people driving their vehicles by themselves less. Carpooling, riding bikes, riding trains, riding buses, walking, even programs that help vehicles move with less congestion and traffic are eligible for CMAQ. The Surface Transportation Block Grant Program outside of Measure L is our most flexible funding program. It pays for just about anything on the surface transportation system on federal aid eligible roads. So we use it for road rehabilitation, safety improvements. It can buy buses. It cannot pay for operating assistance. It only buys things, stuff, land, property. Next slide. So the reason why this is so momentous is normally we program 2 years at a time. Our last funding round programmed the federal fiscal years. We say federal fiscal years because they're federal dollars. Federal fiscal year, unlike the fiscal year that Gene was just talking about, begins in October 1st and then ends in September 30th of the year mentioned. So we're about to program the years 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030. That's 4 federal fiscal years. That's double what this policy board is normally asked to program. In our last funding round, the policy board approved the federal fiscal years 25 and 26. Now, 25 and 26, we're already in 25 right now. What we have is a 4-year document, the FTIP, maybe you've heard of it. It's supposed to lay out how our policy board intends to spend funding over the next 4 years. We're only halfway through programming it. And if we hadn't done that funding round last year, we would have 0 years programmed. So one of my goals when I came here to work for StanCog is to get that FTIP filled up. We programmed 2 years, did the funding round the first time doing a fully competitive funding round, got feedback from all of our local agencies, transit operators, workshopped it, figured out what to do to improve it, and then we came back out with another funding round. This is basically on the heels of the last one. This time, we are filling up that FTIP, and we're filling up the next FTIP, which is going to go out through 2030. So it's a 4-year funding round. $96 million is about triple what we would normally do. It should be double, right? But it's triple because we also have funding from carryover years that we're programming. These are dollars we found on the couch cushions that belong to transportation projects. We're putting it in the funding round, 96 million. That's about almost half and half, CMAQ and STBG. Next slide. Here's the distribution for CMAQ. We are going to program 41 million through a competitive process. Traditionally, and with past precedent, we set aside money for something called transportation demand management. These are federally approved, high-performing, cost-effective strategies for reducing emissions. You can build a bike lane, you can buy a bus, but if you can give someone a gift card to walk and bike to school, if you can give someone an incentive to ride the bus, like free transit days, that is a very cheap method to achieving emission reductions. And that's what TDM does. StanRTA, we're proposing programming $200,000 per year for their TDM program. That adds up to $800,000 for 4 years. StanCog, we operate a TDM program called Stannis Cruise. We're proposing $4 million for that. That's $1 million per year for the 4 years. Stannis Cruise, most of that $1 million goes to paying for our van pool program. These are incentives for people to ride in vans far distances. And when they do that, they are giving up their personal automobiles to ride in a van. It's like the most cost-effective transit possible because there's not even a bus driver driving it. They're driving their own bus. So that's 45.8 million from CMAQ. Next slide. Next slide's going to be STBG. We're proposing 49.7 be competitive. That's after we take 200,000 a year for 4 years off the top to pay for PPM, another acronym, planning, programming, and monitoring. It's basically what I and Blake Dunford do and Elizabeth Hahn, we plan, we program, we monitor. Totals 5.5 million from STBG. Next slide. New this round are large category and small category funding. In the past, our funding rounds basically look like the right-hand column, all small category. When we only had 30 million to program, 2 million a pop got you maybe 15 projects. We have 96 million a program, 2 million a pop. That's a lot of applications that our agencies do not want to fill out. They said, let's do a larger category. So we workshopped it and we settled on a $5 million max request for large category projects. And we mixed in CMAQ and STBG into both large and small categories. So we're going to start from the top left column. So CMAQ will have 21 million and STBG about 20 million for the large category combined, that's about 40 million. Max request 5 million. The max, and then we're going to go to the right-hand side. Small category will have 20 million CMAQ and 30 million STBG for about 50 million, or actually exactly 50 million. And the maximum request under small categories will be $2 million. So 5 million large, 2 million small. We will have a maximum application cap, limiting the number of applications per agencies. For large, only up to 3 large applications. For small, up to 5. So an agency could apply for 8 projects if they wanted. What that comes out to, if you do the math, is that under the large category CMAQ, we might fund between 2 and 4 large CMAQ funded projects. And for STBG, we might fund about 4 large STBG funded projects. Small category, we might fund 10 CMAQ funded projects, and we might fund 15 small STBG projects. So altogether, 25 projects probably funded in the small category and between 6 and 8 projects funded in the large category. Next slide. So we have some exceptions. First exception is the City of Turlock. The City of Turlock, the workshop attendees agreed they should be allowed an extra application for large and small. Why? Well, because they're not just a city, they're also a transit operator. And to limit them to just the application limit as if they were a single agency just doesn't make sense from a fairness perspective. They're allowed 1 extra under each, but only if they're applying for both transit and non-transit. For transit operating assistance, we're treating this differently. Transit operating assistance can apply for up to 3 million per year, and really only CMAQ is eligible for that. And we're allowing a maximum of 3 years. So a transit operator who's operating new bus service or expanded bus service or new passenger rail service or expanded passenger rail service can apply for up to 9 million for the large, under transit operating assistance for CMAQ. Next slide. These changes might be more interesting to your public works agencies, our public works staff, but I'm still going to go over it. We are expanding the scoring committee. We're going up to 14 members, 1 from each eligible agency, plus 1 from StanCog. Scorers do not score their own projects. They step out of the virtual room. They're scoring everyone else's projects. But more scores means a better quality of average score per project. And we'll probably get some ties. So we added in some tiebreaker methodology. For CMAQ, we made some changes. There's now a project narrative. We clarified some things in the applications. One thing to know is these applications are shorter than before, not longer. All of our local agencies and transit operators support these changes. Next slide. There's been some changes. We had draft guidelines. We have now final guidelines. We made some clarifications to different language. Next slide. So the schedule at a glance. We're almost at the end here of this item if you've been waiting for me to get done. March was last month. We brought the draft guidelines to the policy board. These are the final guidelines here in April for the policy board action. Once the policy board approves these, if the policy board approves these, Blake Dunford, who's sitting in the back, he did most of the work for this item. He will be releasing a call for projects to our local agencies in which they will have a very short window. Nope, not a short window, a large window. Applicants will have 5 months to prepare their applications before they're due in September. That was also feedback we received from our local agencies. They need more time. They want more time. Scoring committee will convene in October, November. We'll be back here in December with recommendations for the policy board to take action on, with the projects being amended into the FTIP in January 2026. January is when projects can come in and start requesting money for reimbursable work. And we expect many of these to come in and ask for that money. Next slide. So I think we're at the end. We're at questions. I presented a lot of information. I apologize if any of it went too fast. Happy to go back over any slides, answer any questions.
Any questions from the policy board?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You said the committee was going to be comprised of 14 plus 1 SANCOG?
13 plus 1, total of 14.
Total 14. Counted only 9 member agencies plus the county, that's 10 member agencies.
We have transit operators as well.
7.
Blake, help me out. We counted this double. We double counted. I mean, we double checked it. But please.
Yes. Hello. The additional members consist of Stan RTA, of Move Transportation Stanislaus, and the Rail Commission. So it is one member from every eligible agency to apply for this funding round.
Then, so then 1 from Modesto and then 1 from the county as well?
Yes.
Okay. 14.
Yes.
Okay. Numbers didn't add up, but I wasn't aware of the other ones, so. Cool.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, I'll open it up to the public. Any questions from the public? Would like to make public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for motion.
Can I ask one clarifying
absolutely
question?
can. Go ahead,
I
ma'am.
apologize for doing this out of order, but will the Stan RTA reps and Move, does it have, will these be elected officials or will they be administrative?
These will be staff. So usually that's Public Works, or in the case of transit operators, they're not called Public Works, they're transit staff.
So the Rail Commission will be a staff member from the San Joaquin Regional Rail?
Yes, in fact, there's a,
Or from the JPA, one or the other?
right, they share
Okay.
the same building and the same paychecks.
Okay.
Yep.
And same with StanCog?
Yes,
Obviously,
it'll
okay.
probably be Blake and I. One of us will vote and
Great,
one of us will
thank you.
facilitate.
I have no comments.
All right. All right, bring it back for a motion. I got a first.
I'll second it.
I got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right.
Thank
moving
you.
On, motion to approve resolution 24-35, the federal fiscal year 2027 to 2030 funding round early programming. Jose, back up.
Yes, so this should look very familiar. It's rare that a policy board is asked to go ahead and vote on programming projects, having just approved the funding guidelines. Next slide. We don't need to go over background again. Next slide. So just a reminder that we are doing this competitive call for projects where 41 million is going out for competitive, but we've identified, the policy board has identified 4.8 million of off the top programming of CMAQ for TDM. Next slide. And the policy board just approved a call for projects and funding round where 50.5 million of SVG would be programmed. 800,000 of that would come off the top for planning, programming, and monitoring. Next slide. Here it is laid out a little more clearly, 800,000, 4 million, and 800,000. Now, what are we doing? We already know that the policy board has just voted to adopt guidelines that would program these dollars and others competitively selected in December of 2025. We don't need to wait until December 2025 to program off the top programming. We could wait and it would be fine. There's something we should talk about. Jen Covino mentioned it. In 2026, that's the last year of the current Transportation Act. And usually what happens, usually is not exactly a great word, historically in the last like 30 years, 25 years I've been doing this job, Congress, as they go to adopt a new transportation act, looks at the old act and says, is there any money left over from any of these programs that we could kind of sweep up in order to pay for the next transportation act? And especially if the last administration was a different party, or the last Congress was a different party, they become even more aggressive at looking at funds from the past Transportation Act to sweep up. This is called rescission. There is no rescission scheduled or calendared or that is definitely happening. It is just a risk. And I like looking at risk carefully. I'm sensitive to the risk that there could be a rescission of specifically CMAQ dollars coming in 2026. So not right now, but next year. So we could wait till next year, but as your director of program project and program delivery, I am nervous about the exposure of us not having obligated all of our CMAQ funds. We began this year with about $40 million in combined CMAQ and STBG. When we surveyed all of our agencies, they said they could only obligate about 15 million of that money, leaving about 25 million unobligated. If we could program these dollars today and program them into FTIP, then your staff can, and StanRTA, we could submit to FHWA to obligate these dollars so that they are not at risk of being rescinded. Hence the proposal to do early programming at this meeting. This was recommended by all the committees. Those that voted unanimously to recommend this. Next slide. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Jose? All right. Any public comment? All right, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Have a first.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. All right. In your packet, you have your information items. Hopefully you've got to look at all those. Caltrans report, Gregoria Pons. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Gregoria Ponce, District 10 Acting Planning Deputy. I do have a few items to share. I'd like to open with the Clean California Community Days. Caltrans District 10, in partnership with Clean California, is excited to announce a series of community events to beautify and clean up areas throughout District 10, San Joaquin, Stanislaus, and Calaveras at this time as part of our third annual Clean California. At this time, for Stanislaus, we have an upcoming event. It's very affectionately known as Love Turlock Service Day. It's Saturday, April 26, 2025. It begins at 8 a.m. at Donnelly Park in Turlock. It's a citywide service day cleanup event. And for more information, can certainly reach out to us or loveturlock.com. In light of changes coming forward at the federal level, we also have changes that translate into our local assistance program. And so to assist with that, Caltrans has a local assistance day webinar. That's May 6, 2025, 8:30 to 11:20. So we plan to provide information in partnership with the Transportation Planning Agencies Group. It focuses on information from the latest project delivery requirements, facilitate peer sharing of best practice, and is an ideal platform for updating local project managers, engineers, and other industry professionals, as well as those who are interested in local assistance processes, including budgets and how funding is funneled through for local assistance projects. So we have Office of Transit Grants and Contracts, Office of Project Development, Management and Delivery, Office of Federal Programs. This might be of interest to some here with regards to understanding the processes of pass-through funding and accessing those funds, Office of State Programs, and Environmental Compliance. Pivoting from that, the federal policy changes and Caltrans processes, particularly under the Executive Orders for Environmental Justice and Climate Change. Local assistance is also hosting information on that, and we are also in the process of updating our local assistance procedures to address the recently issued federal executive orders rescinding the previous executive orders relating to several environmental topics, including environmental justice and climate change. So within our manuals we'll be seeing those changes very, very soon and made available. In terms of funding, we have Federal Highway Administration Safe Streets and Roads for All program. There's a call for applications through Federal Highway Administration. There's approximately 982 million available. And the deadline is January 26, 2025 by 2 p.m. Pacific time. Eligibility is MPOs, county governments, and federal tribes. And additional information can be obtained through www.grants.gov. And last but not least, we did cover this on the OWP. I wanted to extend appreciation and acknowledgement, Executive Directors, to you and your team regarding the overall work program. Thank you so much for meeting us and walking with us on the overall work program, as well as your quarterly invoicing. We were able to approve a lot. And so thank you again. And we look forward to continuing to expediting invoices as they come forward. Thank you. I have no other items to share.
Thank you very much, Gregoria, for your report. Any questions for Gregoria?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to let everybody know that at the conference that I recently attended in Merced, Caltrans District 10, along with District 6 and 11, keep me honest here, were presented an award for the work they've done in the expanding the corridor from Merced to Tulare. But it was a very high honor, and it was rewarding to me to be able to see Grace go up and accept the award for District 10. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. That was 5 and 6. And we were so, I'm sorry, and 10, and we were so excited. We were just absolutely honored. We were over the moon about that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, moving on, Executive Director report.
Thank you, Member Carr, for mentioning Greg's Maisaio's recognition for District 10. And for Gregoria, I really want to say thank you for your team, because helping us with all the invoicing and the overall work program with all these changes have been very, very helpful. So we really thank the partnership, and so I appreciate that. I also want to mention to the board, yes, we were at the San Joaquin Valley Policy Conference, and I love that conference because it's the Valley. It's our Valley regions. It's all 8 of them together, including our Air District and our Rail Commission. So it's a really nice event because we get to work together on the same like issues that we deal with. And so it was a very nice one that it was held by Merced, and they did a phenomenal job doing that, the conference. In 2 years, we are up. It rotates throughout the regions to do this. And I know Madera, Patricia Taylor, the Executive Director, was really working on my board members to get us to do it next year. No, please, no. We got a lot of work too, so we'll wait our turn in 2 years. But so anyhow, but it was a really good event. Our congressman was there, Adam Gray, and it was really good to connect with him with our regional priorities. Briefly, Member Escutia Brayton and I had an opportunity to talk to him about our projects. And then also we saw Fiona Ma, our California State Treasurer. She was there. So it was a really good event, but they did a really good job talking about the regions and all of us coming together, and our Caltrans friends were there. So that was really fun. So with that, it concludes my report.
Thank you. All right. Member reports.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Just give everybody an update on the conference we were just at. One of the sessions I attended was the session on progressing with hydrogen fuel. One of the surprising things I found is there are 2 types of hydrogen fuel, which I never knew. One is gas, one is liquid. One of the other things that was new to me is we now have a new hydrogen generation station in the Fresno area. Prior to that, we only had 2 in the state. One was in Palm Springs and one's up in Sacramento. And there's been a lot of insight into transportation, transfer, and also the longevity in the transfer on liquid hydrogen. Currently, there is a 40% loss in volume from the time you get it from the generation station in the state to actually putting it in the buses. And they're trying to work on that. They are narrowing it down to the types of nozzles that they're using, but I did get to observe a transfer in Orange County last year, and you could just see all the steam coming out from the hose, and all that was wasted hydrogen. So they're working on that. But the other thing that was very insightful to me was from Stockton. They have electrical and they have hydrogen buses. The battery operated electric buses in the beginning, they were getting, I think he said around 18 years battery life. Currently, with the new buses they've already replaced 3 in less than 8 months. And those batteries are expensive. Distance-wise, they're lucky to get about 200 miles on a charge before the bus has to be recharged. Hydrogen gas, they can get pretty close to 400 miles on a full tank of hydrogen. So, but it does take a little bit longer to fill a bus, depending on whether you have the gas hydrogen or the liquid. But hydrogen looks like it is going to be the mode of the future. There's still a lot more to learn on it. But since this is transportation, there's still going to be a lot more to come. And I'm pretty excited about seeing where we're going to go with this. Stan RTA already has 3-4 buses on order. We're waiting until we get a charging station before we accept delivery. But now we got to see whether we want gas or liquid, see which one's actually going to be better. So that's what I got out of the conference.
I also attended the conference. It was quite valuable to just interact with our colleagues from other municipalities and realize that we all deal with much of the same challenges and opportunities. One of the delightful things in the conference was the Jenny Knoyer Award that was issued. And this is done annually. And I believe last year, was it given to Vito? Was it last year that you received the Jenny Knoyer Award? And can you remind me what the Jenny Knoyer Award is given for? Appropriately named Jenny Knoyer for tenacity. So that was super cool that a colleague of ours, her name and her legacy goes on. And Vito and I were having a conversation specifically about this. Those recipients of the award provided anecdotal stories about her and about her tenacity and leadership. But in perhaps a couple generations, the recipients of that award would not have personally have known Jenny. And but yet they will be receiving the Jenny Knoyer Award. Anyways, another observation that I made about that particular event was how heavily sponsorship funded it was, which just lets me know that when we have it in a couple years, all of us are going to have to work really hard to obtain sponsorship support, because it just doesn't happen for free. And this organization certainly doesn't have the funding to put on that, doesn't have the bandwidth to put on that type of event. So we all have to work really hard to rally around our sponsorship partners so they could support that event. The conference concluded with a conversation with Treasurer Fiona and our Congressman Adam Gray. And what they both agreed to, it was the importance of a bipartisan conversation with our elected officials, both at a state and federal level, for the benefit of Central Valley. They both recognize the need to do that and their commitment to help us advocate for our issues at their respective levels. So that was refreshing.
Rosa.
As I mentioned, I did my homework. We were asked to bring a report of Measure L work in our cities. So our city council awarded a construction contract to Bay Cities Paving and Grading on February 4th, 2025 for the reconstruction and pavement overlay of Scenic Drive from Bodum Street to Oakdale Avenue. Construction on the $5.4 million local Measure L project has begun. Some of you may already know that because that's maybe how you get to this building, and will last through the summer. The roadway will remain open during construction, but traffic will be impacted, and the public is encouraged to use alternate routes and be patient as we complete this important project. And weekly updates of the traffic information are posted on the city website, where we also have all of our Measure L work, a thorough explanation with beautiful pictures of all Measure L work within the city of Modesto. That's my report.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And I'm keeping track who's not going to give reports on the Measure L stuff.
1A and all Fs.
Does any one of the cities, if you've gone out to bid, do you see bids coming in lower than your engineer's estimate? Has anyone seen any softening of the market? Sam? I don't know.
Have you?
Yeah. Well, the North County Corridor, which is Bay City, the same person.
Yeah, Sam Trun, Stanislaus County Public Works. Yes, we have seen a softening of bids coming in particular North County Corridor, 20-something million below engineer's estimate. We just bid out the Turlock Sidewalk project. I think it's BCIF funded, and that one came in about $120,000 below engineer's estimate, at about three and some change. Engineer's estimate was about four and a half or so.
Is that the
450,000,
Kenwood
sorry.
Island, or is that in there, safe streets or safe routes to school?
No, that is you're talking about the Turlock one? I'm talking about the Turlock one?
That's Kenwood Island or the Kenwood Mitchell?
So, I'm not clear on that one, to be honest with you, because it's not in my purview. It's in special projects. But I was at the bid opening, so I wanted to share that information.
Great.
Yeah.
What are we attributing this to?
I think, we bidding it out at the right time is key. I think, contractors are looking for work to stay busy during the construction season. I think if you were to bid out those same projects during, when they're already in construction, with a lot of their projects of kind of staff already sourced out for certain projects, I think they're not inclined to bid and provide competitive bids. But yeah. I think what we've seen, we like to bid out projects winter, early spring for summer construction because we do definitely see better numbers.
Thanks, Sam.
Yep.
All right, so I took a couple pictures. Anybody else have any comments? All right, I took a couple pictures
Wouldn't have
of
even
some
known.
Measure L projects in the city of Riverbank. And actually, yeah, some raised crosswalks near Crossroads School. There was 2 of those put in. I also took a picture of some intersection improvements that were done at South Rosebrook and Roselle. They really dressed up the intersection very well. Some brickwork or some stamp work. ADA, and actually an island was put in on each side, and some carve-outs. I think those are called traffic calming devices or something to keep the speed down. Yeah.
So I can get partial credit for this report.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
This is in my district, and
It is
it
in
helped a
District
lot.
1.
Is that your rubber from your tires on the?
No, not mine. No, not mine. No, all right, so we got some A's going out today, Mayor. All right, we do have closed session tonight.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The board will now adjourn to closed session to discuss item 12A as identified on the agenda.
I can't. I don't.
Stanislaus Policy Board is back from closed session.
Thank you, Chair. The members of the Policy Board have convened from closed session. All of the members, with the exception of Supervisor Withrow, were present for the duration of the closed session, and there is no reportable action.
Will be adjourned.
Are you going out this way? Yeah. Okay.